Hi, this is Andy Whale from Memoriam, and you are listening to Jet from Metal Messiah Radio.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Today we have with us a special guest. We have drummer Andy Whale, formerly of Bolt Thrower and now with Memoriam. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Hi, Jet. How you doing? Yeah, good, all good.
So, Andy, how old were you when you became interested in drums, and were drums the first instrument you were interested in?
Yes, they were. Basically, I remember I was 14 when I first bought my first set of drums. I think they cost about £140 at the time, which, to be honest, you could probably get a second-hand set of drums for that now anyway. So, but basically, bought myself a little second-hand Premier I remember it was a white mother of pearl 5-piece kit. It was a nice little kit, and I had it in my bedroom at the end of my bed with a couple of the old cushion covers you used to get.
Sure.
Yeah, with those over the top, and I just used to bash the hell out of it, I remember when my mum let me have it. I was allowed to use it at certain times of the day, so I didn't annoy the neighbours. But and that's just literally how I started, really. And then just sort of like went from there. You know what it's like. You sort of like just practice, and I mean, basically, you find a few friends at school that are sort of like into music as well, and just get a little band together. So, that's really how it started, really.
What kind of music were you playing on that kit back when you first got it?
Punk rock. Yeah, it would have been. I mean, you're talking. When I was 14, it was probably sometime in the 70s, so like late 70s, that kind of thing. And I was very much into sort of like all the Sex Pistols, Buzzcocks, all that kind of stuff. Really, I just loved it. I just loved that kind of stuff. And then obviously, as time went on, sort of like got more into sort of like bands like Crass and Discharge, and and just sort of like play. I mean, what it's like when you're sort of like teenager, you just play along to records, and sort of. I think that's the way you learn, isn't it? Most people, yeah, you just try and copy what you're listening to,
right?
But I mean, I do like tinkering about with guitars, but to be honest, it's never really been my thing, really. I just like, I think drumming is a lot more, me. You can just hit things, and you fairly quickly you can get a result, can't you? And then you have to try and fine tune it, I think.
So what were some of the bands that influenced you to play the music you play now? Would that be like Crass and Discharge and that kind of stuff?
Well, Crass not so much, really. I would say more that in a way Crass and that kind of anarcho punk bands more influence the way I see the world today. Do you know what I mean? And maybe quite critical. In a way. Sometimes I sit here now. I mean, I'm sort of like in my early 50s, and sort of like you think, God blimey, if I hadn't listened to that music, I might not have been such a grumpy git that I am now. Do you know what I mean? But no. So yeah, I mean, Crass and all that anarcho punk stuff. I would say more, influence the way I think about things, really, how I see the world. But influence, I mean, you've got sort of like fairly early punk stuff, really, because I got into all that kind of, the Sex Pistols, sort of that kind of thing. But then sort of like went into more, you know the way it is with music. You get into sort of like a scene through the popularity, don't you? That's on the radio in a way. You listen to, that's how you get into it. But then you sort of like fine tune what you find what you like, don't you? And to be honest, I would say, I mean, early Discharge, that's when I sort of like thought, that is amazing. Sort of like that is what I want to sort of like do. And then even to the extent of sort of US hardcore bands as well, that kind of thing. I got into that in a big way. You know, one of my favourite albums of all time is Half Off, The Truth. And you know, that sort of stuff really influenced me. And then moving along really to sort of, you know, early 80s, you know, 82, 83, 84, you know, bands like Venom came up and, you know, Possessed and all Voivod and all that kind of stuff. And that sort of like dragged me across more to the sort of like metal style.
Right.
But, I mean, really, I mean, until I actually joined Bolt Thrower, which would have been in '86, I'd only ever played a 5-piece drum kit really with a single bass drum. You know, I mean, it was only until, you know, I joined them then that I actually sort of really started playing double bass drum. And I mean, obviously, you know, you just practice, and you know, a couple of albums later, you get sort of like, you know, you get half decent at it, don't you? I suppose so. But yeah. I mean, that would have been what influenced me. You know, sort of like Slayer. I mean, I know every time I say interviews, I always say that. But you know, early Slayer. I saw them in '84 actually at the first show they did at the Marquee. And that was you know, that was absolutely brilliant. You know, it was just in a way it was sort of like something different, and the energy that came over, you know, seeing bands like that. You know, whereas in, you know, I'd always sort of like bands like, you know, even the Ramones, that kind of thing, that influenced me a little bit as well. You know, I mean, so I've always been a very big Ramones fan as well. So, you know, I've always steered to that kind of speed and that energy of drumming, if you know what I mean. So it's, you know, it's just a great way to sort of, you know, express yourself in a way, you know.
And now, did you ever take any lessons, or are you all self-taught?
No, I did. I remember when I first bought my kit, I bought one of these, you know, these tapes you can buy of how to learn the drums. Sure. And I think I got, you know, sort of like, I think I got maybe to the paradiddle section and then sort of like gave up and just self-taught really. I mean, to be honest, I've got so many bad habits. You know, it's unbelievable. I mean, you know, I mean, my drummer, people that I know who play the drums probably look at me and think, my God, what's he doing? But it's just what you do, isn't it? And you just find your own, you know. I think in a way, I've got my own style, and you know, that it's me really, you know. So, but yeah, literally all self-taught, just bashing away and, you know, finding out what you can do and just trying stuff really. I mean, when I started really, you know, I was talking to one of my friends. We were talking about this a few months ago really, when, you know, back in the 80s, we just wanted to play. You just wanted to play drums, you know. It was just a case of getting together with your mates, making a few songs up, and yeah, I mean, you know, that was what you did, and sort of like, you know. But now I'm actually older. You know, I concentrate more on, you know, I do actually practice techniques now, whereas in before, it was just basically the enjoyment of bashing the hell out of a drum kit with a few mates, and luckily, I've just seemed to have done quite well out of it, really. Which, to be honest, I could only be thankful for it, really. But yeah, I mean, you know, so yeah, all self-taught.
So, what was the first band you were in? How old were you?
I think when I left school at 16, me and a few friends from school started a band called Urban Chaos, which were just it was at a time when you know, Verucas, that kind of stuff were around, you know, so it was that sort of like, you know, that sort of like, you know, mid-paced punk, really, crossing over into sort of like, you know, sort of. But yeah, and we just, you know, I think we did. I think we played together for about 2 or 3 years, really. Wow. So that'd be sort of like 1980 to about 1983. Urban Chaos did. I mean, to be honest, we did a couple of demos, and we did actually get offered a because at the time there was a lot of compilation albums, you know, like It was all those Oi the album and all that kind of thing, like, you know. And there was a compilation that we got offered. I think it was a Country Fit for Heroes. We got offered the second one, but we sent off the demo, and it never actually came. You know, it got pressed or anything. Right. So that was our claim to fame at the time. So we nearly were on that album, but weren't, because they never made it. So, but yeah. So that would have been the first band, and probably, you know, after that. To be honest, I was in quite a lot of bands after that, but you know what? I can't actually remember what any of them were called. So, but, yeah. So just a couple of bands after that, and then just sort of like, you know, did the circuit in Birmingham of playing all the local pubs with local bands, until really you know, you get up to about 80, 85, 86 when, you know, when I got asked to join Bolt Thrower, really. So
tell us about that, Andy, then. You know, Bolt Thrower, you were in from the beginning of the band. So how did that all come about that you got in there? And what were those early days like back then?
Yeah, I mean, basically, at the time, obviously everybody knows it's a bit of a folklore now, isn't it? You know, that the Mermaid was going, you know, bands. There was a massive scene. You know, everybody used to go to the Mermaid and watch bands, and everybody knew everybody else. And my really good, an old friend, Jimmy Whiteley. He was one of the bassists in Napalm, and then he went on to join Ripcord. Mm-hmm. It was quite simple, really. He was at a show. He was at a gig over in Coventry. He knew Baz and Gav, because obviously Gav had been in the Verucas at one point, right. And they were just saying that they were looking for a drummer, sorry. And Jimmy just sort of like said, "Oh yeah, I know a drummer," you know. And he came over to my flat one evening and sort of like said, "Yeah, saw these guys, you know, over in Coventry, and they're looking for a band, and, you know, why not give them a call?" And it was as simple as that, really. I mean, I think I might have phoned up Gavin, actually, and sort of like, you know, he just sort of like said, "Well, come over to Leamington and have a bit of a practice." So one weekend it was, actually, jumped on the train over to Leamington. Gav met me at the station. We walked down to what was sort of it was a house that the Verucas, they all lived in it, and obviously Gav, knowing them, you know, good mates with them, he lived there as well. And they basically, I remember they had this house, a very big house, you know, very old sort of Victorian house, had a cellar. And they had it all kitted out, you know, with, you know, guitars and amps in there, with, you know, those sort of like big egg boxes, you know, where, sure. You know, the trays where you can stick like 40 eggs in or whatever, stuck to the wall, expecting that to stop any kind of music, any sound going through. And me and Gav and Baz just had a bit of a practice, and then they just sort of like said, you know, "Well, do you want to join?" And yeah, why not? You know what I mean? That was where it was at the moment. I mean, it was just a band, wasn't it? You know, you don't think that it's anything's going to come of it. Sure. It's just a bit of fun, really. And yeah. So and that was it, really. I mean, early days of the band. Obviously, Alan was the singer then.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a case of, once a weekend or every other weekend, used to go over to Leamington, practice in a local. I think it was I think the first place we practiced in was like an old church sort of hall, really.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, we practiced at a shop called Kong, which was owned by Gary Maloney, the Discharge drummer, and who, to be honest, I mean, at the time it was amazing, really, because he was I mean, Gary is. I love, sort of like drummers that influence you a lot.
Right.
And, and so actually, in a way, because I didn't really know him, it's sort of like, well, it's Gary from Discharge, sort of like. So that was absolutely ace, great to meet him and become friends with him, sort of like, because he'd been a real influence in a way. And yeah, so just used to practice, and then, sort of like, go back round to the house, have a few beers, and have a bit of a laugh, and it just like that, really. I mean, it wasn't anything to be honest, anything sort of any out of the ordinary, really. It's just
mm-hmm.
being in a band, as many people do, and then obviously, we got offered a show with a couple of our friends. In fact, it was when Rat had left the Verucas, and he'd started a band called Arbitrator, and a few of the guys from Verucas in that, and we did a couple of shows with them, I think, and just took off from there, really. I mean, so and then obviously we went to Rich Bitch and did the demo, which was always quite interesting, because at Rich Bitch Studio, because obviously we didn't have a lot of money at the time, they had this deal that you could record a demo overnight. So, it was about £100 for sort of like, 10 hours, but it was like from 11 o'clock at night or something like that to about 6 in the morning. So, and yeah. So that was it, really. I mean, it was good, it was good fun. It was exciting, because obviously, you're in a band and sort of like getting a few gigs, and it was all good fun, really.
And you said the music scene was really massive back then. What was it like there during that time? I mean, what kind of music was really, really popular then?
Well, I mean, basically, in Birmingham at that time, massive would probably be the wrong word to use. It was just a really good time. I mean, the Mermaid could hold probably about 400 people or something. Yeah. But it was just the whole thing. You had the Mermaid, and then you had shows over at Coventry as well. And there was always, all the big the guy that used to run it, Daz Russell, his name was. He just used to get all these. For the time, amazing bands. Like DRI played. Anybody you could think who was big at the time, they'd get them down there. And sort of like obviously at the time it was it always seemed to be Napalm that would support them as well. Anybody, it always seemed to be any show on at the Mermaid, it would be Napalm. I think they were, the band that sort of like Daz Russell's band to just get on as a support act sort of thing. But they were great. Do you know what I mean? It was completely different. Everybody really enjoyed it. But it was just a great time, really, because there was just a lot of people from all around the Midlands who used to go there every week. Whatever bands were on, everybody'd be there, and it was just, you'd meet up, you meet with friends, and it was just a really sort of like interesting time. And when you actually think about the people that were there as well, a lot of them are still in bands now. You know what I mean? Like, you had all the Napalm guys were always there. And sort of, it was just really, really good times, really. And it's amazing that 30 or so years down the line, you've got a lot of people that were there that are still very high profile in the scene now, really.
Right.
So, and in a way as well, because everybody was, in a way, a lot of people were in bands, and although you were really good mates with them, you know, you wanted to try and be that little bit faster than them, that little bit heavier than them, and it was sort of like, in a way, it sort of like pushed what we did, because everybody wanted to sort of like, you know, outdo everybody else.
Course,
so like, you know, you had like Mick Harris, who was probably, you know, he was a faster drummer than everybody else. So you think, right, fair enough, well, I'll do something else, and you know, and it just pushed everybody. Like for instance, Bolt Thrower as well. We tuned down, you know, and everybody just, you know, everybody just finds their own little bit to have their own little niche in a way of. So, and it was a really good time because, you know, it pushed everybody, and in a way, it's sort of like you've still got that music around now, which is great, really.
And what was the first major tour you were on? What was that experience like?
I'm just trying to think which would have been first. Actually, I can't remember because I know we did I think it would have been the Grind Crusher tour, wouldn't it? I think there was two tours really that we did very early on. There was a Grind Crusher tour, which, I mean, that was at the time, it was really a big thing. Do you know what I mean? You know, like, you know, we went from playing, you know, sort of like pubs, clubs that had hold 400 or 500 people to sort of like quite big venues, really. I mean, us, Bolt Thrower and Carcass, we sort of like took it in turns, swapping over, opening the show. So one night we'd open, then Carcass would go after us, and then obviously you had Morbid Angel and Napalm headlining it. So, but yeah, I mean, it was amazing, really. I mean, it was that was a really big thing. I mean, obviously that was around the UK as well. So, but it was places that sort of like, you know, we would never have played really at the time, you know, like town halls, that kind of thing. ULU, like London ULU, which, you know, the university, which was, you know, really, really big venues, you know, Rock City as well. That was a big venue. So, and it was good to see them, the crowds there as well, you know, because obviously, I mean, you know what it's like with a band. You can play one venue and you can have 200-300 people there, and then you can play some other venue and it's sort of like 50 people, which is no fun. And then the other early tour that we did, which probably was the best, best of the two, better of the two, which would have been the Blood Brother tour with Pestilence and Autopsy over in Europe. I mean, we only did the first part of it. I can't remember why, to be honest, but that was absolutely brilliant. I mean, that was so much fun, especially for us, because I mean, you know, we're all from, you know, like working class lads from Birmingham, you know, let out in the big wide world of Europe. You know, it was absolutely brilliant. We've like free ham and cheese rolls and as much beer as you can drink. So, and loads of chocomel as well. So you can imagine, you know, just totally went bonkers. Really, it was great fun. I mean, you know, with the Autopsy lads and the Pestilence lads, that was just one of the funniest tours we've probably ever done. It was really, really good. You know, so, but and the shows were good as well. You know, it was really good fun. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, that would probably be my, you know, one of the best tours we did. Just because of the fact, you know, it was get over there and sort of like just, you know, have fun really. Which, to be honest, it's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, hey, did you know Carl prior to being in Bolt Thrower?
Yeah. Basically, what it is, the way I know, or the way I knew Carl. Anyway, I know Carl. Going on as if I don't know him anymore. I wish I didn't sometimes, but yeah. But my ex-wife, her step.
Oh boy.
No, her nephew. Was Carl's best mate at school. So, and Carl and Tommy, who's Sally's sort of like relative, used to come to the shows because they were into all that kind of stuff, and we just got to know Carl that way really, and then basically what it was. Carl started helping out with the band, i.e. driving, that kind of stuff. And he, in fact, the first Peel session that we did, and I think the first Doom session that they did as well. He drove us down to London, and obviously, and that's the connection, really. So I'd probably known him. I'd probably known him for a little while before Bolt Thrower, but really for a family member, really.
And now, when Joe came into the band, what was it like for all of you guys to now have there's a girl in the band, Andy?
Well, at the time, basically, I think what happened was, Gavin wanted to go over onto rhythm guitar, which fine, all well and good. So we started looking around. I seem to remember we started looking around for bassists. And the usual. You have a few people come in that start strumming out a few Black Sabbaths,
right.
bass riffs, and you sort of like you give them a go, and it doesn't really work. And then I think a guy called Alex Tweedy joined us for a couple of weeks, I think. But I seem to remember him being an half decent bassist, but he was a bit. I think it was a case of he was a bit unreliable, really. So that didn't work. And then obviously at that time, sort of like Joe was with Gavin, and she just I think she just sort of like Gav sort of like said, well, Joe can play bass, and that's what happened, really. But shit, really, it's. I know nowadays, I suppose, looking back on it, having a female bass player, and to be honest, looking back on it as well, you've got to give Jo massive respect, really, for what she's probably put up with on some of the tours.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, and she just come in and just play bass, really. We didn't sort of like, she was just another, member of the band sort of thing. That was it. We didn't sort of like, didn't treat her as, any
right.
differently. She was just a friend, really. But like I say, back then, you've got to give her a lot of respect. You don't have to, it wasn't until sort of like, you sit down and think about it, we in them days, you just used to, doing a tour, it was just a case of, you jump in a van, with a few instruments, and, you wouldn't really stay at hotels or anything. You'd doss down at people's houses. If you couldn't find anywhere to stop, there was a few times we sort of like just slept in the van. Right. On the first US tour, I remember Graham bought one of these ground buzzes. The ones that it's half of it is sort of like seating. And then the back half it would be, I suppose, for transporting parcels and that, if you know
right.
what I mean. That kind of thing. And Graham converted it so the back half of it had bunk beds in, basically.
Oh, cool.
But it didn't have a. It had a toilet, but you can there was no way that a female could use it. Right. Do you know what I mean? Just basically, it was just basically a piece of rubber hose going down out of the buzz with a funnel stuck in it, And I remember the one time as well. It was that cold, it actually froze, and Walt, one of the guys that was helping us, his dad, Walt Trashler, it was. He did the sound for a little bit on the tour and drove, and his dad helped out. And this tube, it was that cold, it froze, and he had to go underneath there and start a little fire to get it. I remember, I'm sure he did that or something. It was, but you even me now, you think like, I'm sort of like, I keep going on and saying I'm 50. You just think, God, why you wouldn't do it? Do you know what I mean? It's but so she just got on with it. She was just one of the lads, and you know, she good bass, good bassist. You know, that was it really. You know, she wasn't treated. I don't seem to remember being treated any differently because she was a female. I really do not know. You know, I don't think in a way that she ever expected to, really.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. So, yeah. But, I mean, now you look back on it, and for the time that I suppose it was sort of like something out of the ordinary, really, wasn't it? Because I suppose in a way as well in them days, it was very much that, you know, like it was very much a male sort of dominated world. You know, all the people that came to the shows, you know, it was probably like 99% got like lads, you know, but I mean nowadays it's completely different, isn't it? You know, and it's, you know, but so, you know, I mean it was just something we did and got on with, really.
And, you know, you were in Bolt Thrower for, like, a good portion of your career. So what were, like, some of the super high points for you, Andy, and what were, like, some of the struggles you had to deal with?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I mean, doing the first Peel session was quite a big thing, I suppose, for me. You know, I mean, I remember sort of like sending a demo off to John Peel and Tommy Vance at the Rock Show, which, you know, were the two sort of like big radio shows at the time, which played what I'd class as, alternative music. You know, they played rock and, you know, indie music. And I remember getting a letter back from Tommy Vance going, "Oh, thanks, but, you know, you're not really our kind of thing." And then, you know, John Peel got back in touch with us and sort of, John Peel got back in touch with us and said, "Oh yeah, you know, want you to come in and do a Peel session." I mean, that was great. I mean, you know, because I mean, obviously, you know, you sort of like you're in a band, and then suddenly you're being played on national radio,
right?
And I mean, the culture shock between the week before and the week after. I mean, that my postman must have absolutely hated me, like, you know, because obviously they put down my home address as a contact on the radio. So I just used to get like bundles of letters every day, like from people, you know, and sort of, which was good, you know what I mean? And then obviously doing the first record, I mean, it's always great to do the you know, an album in a way, and, you know, it's what everybody wants to do. So I mean, I don't know what your class as high points or low points. I mean, obviously nearer the end of it. I mean, if I'm completely honest, I mean, for maybe a year or so before I actually left the band, I was having quite a few personal problems, and that may be sort of like influenced and caused a few problems, you know, towards the end, and probably, you know, was the reason why I left. So, but I mean, high points, there was lots. I mean, the first American tour, that was great. You know, I mean, getting, you know, I mean, for every band,
sure,
going to America is always a sort of, you know, a sort of like big pinnacle in your sort of, you know, you feel as if you've really made it. You know, but I mean, and then on the flip side of the coin, the second American tour, where, you know, looking back on it, maybe wasn't the best of ideas, and, you know, maybe I was a little bit instrumental in that, so I'd always have to take, you know, blame and hold my hand up. You know, maybe it was a mistake doing it, but you know, you just get on with it, really, don't you? You know what I mean? And just try and move on. But that's all you can do. But I mean, just being in Bolt Thrower was you know, I mean, was brilliant. I mean, it's sort of like in a way, it's sort of, I've always said, it's being in a band like Bolt Thrower is a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because obviously it's great, but it's sort of like you can't get away from it as well, in a way. I mean, when I left the band, I did really try to sort of like not be Andy Whale, Bolt Thrower drummer, and you know in them days, because there wasn't any social media,
right,
and you know you could just walk away from stuff, and you know, as long as you stayed away from certain places, it was sort of, you know, you just get on with your life, really. Nobody, you know, everybody forgets about you. But unfortunately, you know, sort of like, you just seem to go around in circles, really, you know, and sort of you end up back where you start from. So you sort of like have to give into it in the end and sort of like go, yeah, I'm Andy Whale, who was in Bolt Thrower, you know, but sort of like, you know, sort of like say, yeah, but yeah, so, you know, I mean, being in bands, you know, like Bolt Thrower is great, but it can also have its downsides, as many people in bands would probably agree with me as well. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's sort of like it's sort of an uneasy. I've always explained it to people as being in a band like Bolt Thrower, i.e., you know, with that modicum of success. I wouldn't say, you know, I mean, in the real world of music and rock music, probably like nothing really, were they? But a band like that can be a sort of like uneasy bedfellow in a way, like where it gives you a lot, but in the end, it's sort of like wants paying. And it doesn't really mind what it takes in repayment, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
If that makes any sense. So, and you know, you just. But as years go by, you know, you just get on with it, really.
Sure. And now, when you left, Carl left around the same time, didn't he?
Yeah. Basically, it was in the middle of, well, I can't remember if it was what section of the American tour. You know, things just came to a head in a way. You know, I'm not going to go into anything. No. It's old news and nobody's really interested anyway. Yeah, things came to a head and we had a bit of a discussion and I just sort of, you know, we just come to a point where, you know, we just decided to call it a day and I think in a way, I mean, Carl. Because obviously I think Carl sort of like saw it as a point where I'd got him into Bolt Thrower, you know, when Alan had left, and I think he just sort of like felt a bit of, you know, he felt as if he needed to support me in a way. So you know, so we both literally left one day, jumped on a plane the next day, and came back to Birmingham, and that was it, like, you know, and. Yeah, I mean, so, you know, sort of like that was it, really. But yeah.
And now, after you left, did you do anything musical after that?
I mean, to be honest, we did do a couple of other bits and pieces, really. Okay. But do you know when, I think it's a case of, you know, you think, oh, right, we're going to do something else. And, you know, we're going to try and do some other stuff. Like, because obviously... You know, at that time we'd been in the band for quite a few years, and you know, we you know, you sort of like get into other stuff. Don't you? I mean, now I listen to that, you know, that much varied music. It's, you know, it's great, and you know, you always want to try and do different stuff. But when we actually did it, we realised that our hearts weren't really in it, really. And I mean, when looking back on it, I suppose in a way. Maybe we should have just done something, you know, the same kind of music, i.e., like, you know, the idea behind Memoriam in a way. And but you know, it wasn't what we wanted to do. And after about a year, I just lost interest in it totally. Right. You know, I'd got on with me. I'd started getting on with my life and sort of like, you know, and just moved away from it. Really, it wasn't the interest that. You know, I think in a way, you know, doing sort of like, what was it, you know, about 8-9 years with Bolt Thrower. I think maybe it was just a bit burnt out, really, because I mean it was pretty full on, really. You know, where we'd do an album and then we'd go out on tour and, you know, it'd be away for like 6-8 weeks at a time, and it does take a toll on you in a way, you know. But in them days, in a way, people didn't sort of like say, oh, maybe we should just take some time off. You know, it was just no. You know, you know, it's just a constant thing. You don't think about it, but you know, nowadays, you probably just sort of like say, do you know what? Let's all just take 6 months off and do what you want to do and come back to it. You know, so. But it wasn't what you did in them days. Do you know what I mean? It was just a different world in a way.
Okay, so tell us now how you got involved with Memoriam.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I mean, obviously in 2015 when, you know, like Kitty passed away, I think really Carl was in quite a bad way. You know, he was very, very upset about it. You know, it hit him quite hard. And I think he just wanted to channel it, the way he was feeling into something. And me and Carl went out for a drink. In fact, went to see Benediction in Birmingham, actually. And we just really got chatting, really, and sort of, just sort of like said, you know, Carl said, well, do you fancy trying, you know, giving it a go and doing something? You know, I mean, I quite fancied doing it because, I mean, obviously, I've got to say, from about a year before, I'd always sort of like kept away from watching Bolt Thrower. I nearly went to see them when they did, you know, the Bolt Fest down in London, and I just, you know, I just sort of like felt that, you know, I'd walked away from them a long time ago, and just, you know, just keep it in the past. But then it was my 50th when they did, I think it was 2014, and they played Damnation, and Carl sort of like said, oh, you know, why don't you come up? And I went to see them, and actually when I went to see them, I thought, oh, you know what, you know, it was very weird watching Bolt Thrower in a way. And speaking to some of the members as well when I was there. And that sort of like got me a little bit of an inkling to sort of like, well, maybe do something. And then when Carl asked me the year later, I just thought, well, give it a try. But obviously, because I hadn't played the drums for so long, I wasn't really sure if I could play the drums, you know. But, well, I mean, obviously anybody can play drums, but I mean, you know, to a standard that you need to be at. So it was just a case, really, that I went away and just sort of like, you know, started practicing. I mean, obviously, all this is really common knowledge. I mean, Carl always wanted to do something with Frank. And then, obviously, Scott had been on tour with Benediction, filling in for Daz. And I just sort of like suggested Scott, because obviously the way I thought is, well, if he's out and about with Benediction, there's obviously that connection in a way, and that's how it really happened, really. So I remember December, just before Christmas, December 2015, we went out for a drink and sort of like just discussed it, and then we sort of like had a bit of a, you know, thought, yeah, we'll book a practice, you know, after Christmas. And you know, in 2016, that's when we started, really. I mean, it's, but I mean, really, as well, it was only really sort of like mine and Carl's idea was just fancied, you know, doing a few covers, really. You know, I mean, not even Bolt Thrower covers, you know, like, but stuff that had influence from years before, and that's what we planned to do. But obviously, Scott having all these ideas sort of like scuppered it, really. So it's all his fault. Blame him for everything. So
what was it like for you then, recording like that first demo? What did that feel like? Was it like a kind of a deja vu-y feeling?
Well, in a way, it was quite hard, really. I mean, because obviously we'd only actually been together for, you know, 4 or 5 months when we did it, and it was. Do you know what? Basically, that Hellfire demo, the reason we did it, or my reasoning to what we did it for, was we wanted to listen. Because I mean, it's one thing actually being in a rehearsal room practicing. You know, you're practicing, everything's loud, but you don't actually know what you sound like, really.
Right. You
know, you've got songs and you think, oh, yeah, they sound quite good, but you don't actually have a feel for where you're going in a way, you know. So the Hellfire demo was really, so we could go into a studio, record the songs, and then go, oh, yeah, that's right or that's wrong. And, you know, but when we were in there, you know, the songs sounded quite good, and I can't remember who it was. Was it me? I don't know, or Frank or wherever. Said, oh, you know, wouldn't it be a good idea to, you know, release a 7-inch? Just because, like, you know, that's where we came from. Do you know what I mean? You did demos, you released a 7-inch, And Frank sort of like said, "Oh yeah, you know, look, I know some guys from Cosmic, you know, they do all that kind of stuff." And we got in touch with them, and they sort of like said, "Yeah, I'd love to," and that's how it happened. But I mean, being in the studio again after all that time was in one way quite hard, and another way it was really, you know, it was really good, but obviously it was in a way it was me finding my feet as well. I mean, and probably the same with For the Fallen as well. I mean, I wouldn't say that, you know, the drumming on For Fallen I was 100% happy with. I mean, now on the newer album, I mean, obviously, you know, I'm getting to the point where, you know, I'm happy with the drumming that I'm doing, like, you know, but they're all sort of like moments in time, aren't they? In a way, it's just sort of like saying, right, you know, that's what we were like then, and this is what we like now. That's it, really. Yeah, I mean, that's all I can say.
Were you surprised or overwhelmed or anything at how fast all of this stuff with Memoriam was happening?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, it was a bit weird. I mean, like, you know, sort of like we had the idea of, like, you know, oh yeah, why not just get like a little bit of a Facebook page going, and then obviously, you know, it just really rocketed from then, really. I mean, but I mean, I know people can say, oh, well, you know, two of you were in Bolt Thrower, one of you was in Benediction and Sacrilege, you know, and obviously Scott's helped out with Benediction, and he's been in, you know, bands like, you know, Life Denied, that kind of stuff. So he's always been on the scene around Birmingham. But in a way, you sort of like it still did take us by surprise. I mean, you know, I mean, it was good. I mean, there again, it's the double-edged sword as well. Sort of like, you know, like where, however many people like us, you've still got a lot of people that go, well, it's not as good as Bolt Thrower. You know what I mean? You know, so you just have to sort of like, you just have to blindly plough on with what you want to do,
right,
and not really worry about it too much. I mean, it's great that people like it, and you know, if people don't like it, that's fine as well. Like, you know, but it's a big world, isn't it? It's a big world,
sure.
You know.
And what was it like for you performing on stage for the first time with Memoriam?
Well, weirdly enough, it was very calming, actually. Yeah. I remember the first show we did was Obscene. I always get it wrong. You have to apologise because I've got it the wrong way around. Obscene Extreme, or
yep, that's way. It. Yeah,
I can never remember. Yeah. And that was the first show we did, and I remember. Because obviously, you know, with festivals, that kind of thing, they normally have two kits, don't they? And while the one band's playing, you set up the next kit. And I remember the band before us was Warwound, our good friends, sort of like, you know. And I remember just sitting on the kit behind Steve while he was playing, just sat there looking around at the big, you know, crowd. There's 2,000-3,000 people there,
right?
Quite calmly. So yeah. Because a lot of people, I mean, a few people that we knew, sort of like said, "Oh God, after 20 years, you'll be sort of like panicking, you know, sort of like." And I just sat there. But you know what? For me, well, I know in a way this sounds. I hope it doesn't sound arrogant or anything, or you know, I don't want to come across as that. But for me, when I'm behind the drum kit, it's sort of like my time, do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
You know, because obviously I'm a parent, you know, I work, you know, and sort of like, you know, you've got so many sort of like things to do in your life. You know, you've got to take the kids here, you've got to take the kids there. You know what it's like nowadays. It's a constant sure. Ongoing thing and so when I actually sit behind the drum kit, it's just me playing the drums with three bloody drunken idiots in front of me, basically. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just for me personally, it's very, as soon as I get behind the drum kit, I'm quite calm and happy, you know, sort of like, you know, so it's a sort of like easy thing for me to do, you know. I feel quite comfortable doing it.
And what are some of the shows you've played since the first album? What, a year ago?
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, there's been. I mean, obviously there's been a couple that I mean, we played some quite big shows, really. I mean, did like Whack and all that kind of stuff. Roadburn, that was really good because I mean that was just lots and lots of different kinds of music. And then we played some quite small shows as well, like obviously club shows. Which, to be honest, if I'm completely honest, that's really us, really. I mean. There's nothing better than being in a club that you play to sort of like 200-300 people. It's packed, it's hot, and everybody's there to see you, and it's great. I mean, we've had some great shows. I mean, we've had a couple where certain people may be a little bit worse for wear due to alcoholic beverages, and it's been a little bit stressful behind the drum kit, I'll say. So yeah, you just go with it. It's all been good fun. I've never walked away from one of the shows yet thinking
that's good.
I didn't enjoy about it. I mean, even the couple, even the odd one or two that have maybe not been what I'd say were perfect shows. I've always just walked away and gone, yeah, it wasn't that bad, and just gone away, had a beer and got on with it, really. So, and you tend to find as well because everything you seem to do now is on YouTube as well. But when you actually sort of like look back on it in a clip on YouTube, you think, do you know what, it wasn't actually that bad anyway. So, but I mean, really, I mean, with Memoriam, I think people just, I mean, like, we're more of a sort of, it's the same with all the other bands like Bolt Thrower, Benediction. There's always going to be the odd scruffy bit, but it's more energy, really, isn't it? It's that, it's the energy that comes across, really. I think that's what people like and feed off, really. Sort of like, because we're not the most technical musicians. We just get up there and it's just sort of like energy, really, you know what I mean? And that seems to come off, and I mean, especially with Memoriam as well, because we always try and have a bit of a laugh when we're on stage as well, and I think that comes across to people as well, when they watch us, so which is good in a way, because I mean, you can be a bit serious, really, do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, but I mean, it's just the way we do things, really.
And now, For the Fallen was released almost exactly a year to the day as the Silent Vigil is going to be released. So did you guys already have music for this album when that album was released? How did you do that so fast?
Well, basically, I mean, if you go back to when we started, I mean, Scott, like literally, we went into the rehearsal room and Scott goes, "Oh yeah, I've got some songs, like, so all right, fair enough." And like, but what Scott does, and I mean, it's a very good way to do things as well. If he has a good idea for a riff, he'll just record it, because he's got like a little Cubase system at home. He'll just record it, and he just banks them up, really. And then what he does is, I mean, the other thing we do as well is, say for instance, Carl or Frank can't make a rehearsal, and me and Scott are in the rehearsal room. We just sort of like jam stuff, and then we'll do a rough recording, and just bank it, really. So when we did For the Fallen, I mean, Scott still had a lot of ideas, and all basic ideas. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to have, recorded them at the time, really. But there was a few ideas that have ended up on Silent Vigil. I mean, even to the point of now, I mean, where literally recorded the album sort of like best part of 4 months ago now, Silent Vigil. We've got ideas for new songs. I mean, obviously they've been put on the back burner, because I mean, we concentrate on the new album and then just doing shows. But no, we've always got ideas for new songs. It's just the way we are, But I mean, it gets to a point where you sort of like say, well, it's too late. It's too late in the recording the whole recording process for them to go on the album really. So they just get put to one side for, the next album.
So what's the vibe like musically in the Silent Vigil as compared to The Fallen?
I mean, for me personally, I think it's more of a straightforward album, really. I mean, it's us. I think in a way, it's us finding our feet a little bit more. And it's a lot of the songs I'd say are more straight. They're more sort of like upfront. You know what I mean? They're sort of like they're a lot more forceful in a way, like But I just think there's. I mean, for me with Silent Vigil, there's a point where I think it's sort of like old to sort of like new, really, and that is the actual track Silent Vigil. You've got songs before it, and then the tracks after it. I think what we've tried to do is really we tried to make. It's hard to explain really, but we tried to make the album a bit awkward to listen to in a way, slightly disjointed. Because obviously Silent Vigil really for me should have been an intro, really. The start of the album, but we purposely put it, 4 tracks in. Just to mix things up, really. What really we want the album to do is, for people to actually listen to it, and then literally it's sort of like at that point, hopefully the album grabs you and sort of like then sort of like gives you a kick up the arse, basically. But yeah, I mean, I'd say with the new songs, I mean, it's everybody's personal view, and is the second album better than the first album? I'd say it is. I like the songs. I think they're a lot more structured. But it's gonna be one of those things where people need to listen to it and make their own decision. But I mean, like I say, we've made it a little bit disjointed, and so it's not just a sort of like album you can put on and just instantly like. I think we want people to listen to it and take it for what it is, because especially with the lyrics, there's quite Carl's gone for a different style this time as well, where he's moved slightly away from the war sort of like lyrics, which we sort of like renowned for in a way, and he's gone more for personal issues that involve his life, and also social issues that are ongoing in the world today. I mean a lot of things, I think, sort of like they've been going on for years and that, but with 24-hour TV nowadays, it's more upfront, isn't it? But yes, we've just tried to chop it up, really.
And Andy, when you went about writing your drum parts on this, did you do anything different this time around than when you wrote the first album?
No, not really. I mean, basically, the way it works is Scott will make up basically a very, very, very basic song with just basic, a very basic drum pattern, really. And then I'll just go away. I mean, I basically practice at home. I've got like a sort of like electronic drum kit, so so I can just basically plug them in, plug my phone into the to my setup, and just work out things, and then sort of like obviously when we go into this rehearsal room, just sort of like say, well, what do you reckon to this? And because Scott's a very good drummer himself, actually, and sometimes he'll say yeah, and then the odd time he'll say, well, why not do this or do that, and sort of like so we just sort of like work off each other, really. But no, I mean with the new album, I'd just say, I was a lot more sort of like happier with it, just because it, I feel that I'm getting back to my, my sort of like, sort of like, you know, where I was years ago. Do you know what I mean? Because for me, this it's always been a bit of a steep learning curve, a bit of an experiment, really. I mean, the fact that I could even do it. So, but now, I'm sort of like a lot more confident and just trying new things. And you know, I mean, like with the track for the Fallen. I mean, you know, that bit in the sort of like about 2/3 in where it sort of like stops, and then you've got very much a bit of a chaotic drum pattern in there, which basically is that what I mean. Until people hear it, they probably won't understand what I'm saying. But what I wanted to do with that, I had this idea of making the drums sound like a battlefield in a way. So the bass drums are sort of like you could sort of like say that, you know, they sounded like a tank going through the thing, and then you've got the cymbals and the snare that sounded like explosions in a way, or even with the bass drums, it could be machine guns. But that was the idea, and it sort of like it worked quite well, and it chops it up as well. So yeah. I mean, like I say, I've tried some new stuff, but kept that you know, what people would say, I suppose, that classic Andy Whale style of doing things as well, which, to be honest, I just like doing. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you know, it's me. It's good fun. I like doing it.
And where was it recorded?
It was recorded at a studio called Rich Bitch. Now, Rich Bitch has a long history with, especially me and Frank. There's been 3 Rich Bitches. Obviously, you know, they've moved over the years. When I was in Urban Chaos, actually, I recorded the first demo, the one that should have been on the should have been on the compilation album, but wasn't because it never came out.
The famous one.
Yeah, infamous it is. Yes. Infamous. Yeah, and you know, but we recorded that first demo at Rich Bitch with the owner, Rob Bruce, who was obviously, he was the owner come producer, or, you know, and then they moved to bigger premises and become very famous. I mean, obviously we did the first 2 Bolt Thrower demos there, you know, in Battle and Concession of Pain. And then when we were looking around for studios, I suppose in a way we sort of you know, because we've got one of these things where we'll go, right, yeah, we're going to record it that week, you know, and then you realise, well, hang on a minute, what studios are available, sort of like, you know. So we start, you know, and it just came up that Rich Bitch had moved to new premises, and we just sort of like thought, well, you know, wouldn't it be nice to sort of like go back to where we started, really?
Right.
You know, I mean, obviously 30 years later, and we just recorded it there. I mean, it's just a little nice studio, you know, nice friendly people, and yeah. So we just, and to be honest, it was brilliant because it's literally 10 minutes away from where we live. So yeah. So it worked. It worked in some ways. It didn't work in other ways, you know. So you go there and But with anything that we record, I always say, you know, it's just a moment in time. You know, you do the best that you can at the time, then you walk away and you listen to it and think, oh, that could have been better. That could have been better. But do you know what? It doesn't really matter, does it? You know what I mean? It's a typical musician's thing, really.
Right.
You know, you're always very self-critical of what you do.
And what
I mean, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, all I was going to say is the good thing about Memoriam is that we're not scared or not worried about after we record something slightly changing it as well. So although some of those songs, you know, they're on that album now, some of the drumming might be different live, you know. So you know, that's the one good thing about Memoriam, I'd say, that, you know, if we go away and think, right, yeah, that could have been better, it's not like you've got to be structured and say, yeah, but that's the way the song is. You know, we're quite happy to change things, you know. I mean, we do that live anyway with some of the songs. You know, if it was some of the endings to songs, if the crowd's into it, we'll just extend it and just mess around with it. It's just something we're very comfortable doing. I mean, it's also a case of as well, which works quite well for us. If somebody makes a mistake live as well, you know, nobody panics. We just carry on. Just go to sort of like just keep the beat going, nod and a wink, and just sort of like, you know, look at each other, and you're straight back in. You know, so it's a good thing. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just a case of maybe because we're comfortable because we've been playing for quite a long time, I suppose. But you know, so we just crack on with things.
Now, when it was all finished, did you listen to it all together?
No. What we did. I mean, this album was done in a very sort of like. You know, people. The way the album was done was me and Scott went into the studio. Scott put guitar tracks down to click tracks, and then I spent a day or two doing those, and then Scott would come back and we'd go back over them and say, this could probably be better, that could be better. And then obviously Scott, after all the drums were done, Scott when he did some, you know, some of the rhythm tracks, and then due to illness, really. I mean, I remember when I was doing the drum tracks. I don't know if you're over in the US. Did you hear we had this sort of like quite bad flu outbreak, this Australian flu or whatever it was called, and that was just before but while I was in the studio, I came down with quite a bad bout of flu, really. So I was literally every day I was just dosing myself up with like flu tablets and cold tablets, and by the end of it, when I'd actually finished, I just went to bed for 3 days and just didn't surface. Feel like I was quite bad, and actually gave it to the one of the producers as well at the studio, which he wasn't very happy about. But so really we did the album all in bits, really, and then. Well, not so much bits, but everybody did their part at a certain, you know, when needed, really. And it wasn't until really when we actually got the final mix that we actually sat down individually at home and sort of like, you know, listened to it in its entirety, really. So, but that's we tend not to sort of like, you know, listen to it. It's just individual tracks, and then, you know, we decide on a time and how it's gonna all fall into place for the album. And then so, you know, I mean really, in a way, I mean I've only listened to the album in its entirety about 3 or 4 times now. You know, I mean, it's sort of like what I tend to do is, because I practice to it a lot, I practice to it individual tracks, so I'll just chop and change stuff. Yeah.
Now, do you have a personal favorite track off the album?
I would say I've probably got 2, really. I'd say New Dark Ages I like, just because it's slightly different. It's slightly different drumming that I wouldn't do. You know, so it's slightly different. Also as well, my favourite, which I've found quite a lot of people seem to like it as well. Second one is No Known Grave. It's just because it's you know, it's just it's a very simple, heavy song, and then obviously, you know, there was an idea, right? I mean, have you heard? I take it you've heard the album, haven't you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had this idea of, I wanted in one of the songs, I wanted to do sort of like something quite musical and quite different, like sort of like those old prog rock bands where they just stop and they just do stuff, and you think, why have they done that? It's absolutely, you know, there's no need for it. And I just sort of like said to the lads, do you know what? I'd love to do something like that, just to sort of like so people go, But I mean, obviously, in Memoriam's way of doing things, we decided, we come up with that sort of like, where it stops and that epic sort of like guitar riff comes in, and then it stops and you've got that chaotic drum beat and all that kind of thing. And that's how that come about. But obviously, because we're Memoriam, it didn't end up being some kind of musical prog rock thing. It ended up being some heavy, nasty thing. But it's still different. Do you know what I mean? It's still different. And do you know what? I like it for it. And to be honest, a lot of people have sort of like said doing interviews, sort of like that kind of thing, that that's one of their standout tracks on the album. But so yeah, I'd say those two. But I mean, as in a whole, I mean, we've No Known Grave as well. That was the lyrics to that as well are quite interesting. Festival, EPA Fest, which is like a hardcore festival over in EPA, was obviously the sort of like massive battle in the First World War. I mean, it went on for. I mean, I think there was 3 battles there over the actual war, but the main one went on for months and months and months. Sort of like, and just the amount of people that the just the slaughter of it really, and just ridiculously. I mean, we basically, when we were there, there's lots of war graves, cemeteries, that kind of thing. Right. And we went to one of the bigger ones, and it was just sort of like, the sheer scale of it really. It's just sort of like gravestones everywhere, but then all around it there's just sort of like walls with people's names that died in that battle that just were never found. You know what I mean? Sort of like that. And that's where No Known Grave came from, like, just the sort of like, the sort of like sheer scale of it, and that sort of inhumanity of war in a way, and the sort of it just made Carl think, right, do you know what? I'm going to go away and write a song about this, and the whole song just fits the idea of it, like, and works well, and that's why I like it. Do you know what I mean?
And so tell us a little bit about the cover art too, and what that depicts, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's Dan Seagrave again. I mean, we've got this idea of obviously the first one was the funeral procession, and now the second one is the sort of like, whatever you want to call it, that the king, the leader. He's the coffin in a sort of like state, and with all the sort of like that futuristic army just there, sort of like in literally a silent vigil to to this fallen sort of like hero really. And but obviously we had that idea, when we got in touch with Dan. We had this idea of sort of like that massive sort of like building in a way, with the swathes of the army, sort of like. But it and then obviously in the middle of it you've got that sort of like tree sort of sprouting out of the ground, which effectively is supposed to be rebirth, sort of like But yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, Dan's artwork's just amazing. Anyway, I mean, there's just, you look at it, and every time you look at it, you see something. But the amount of detail, I mean, in all those people, it's amazing, really. Because normally when you see a picture of like swathes of people, you normally expect to see sort of like that sort of like blurry outline of people's heads or bodies, don't you? And it's very basic, but. It's absolutely amazing the way it looks, as if he's sort of like sort of drawn every single individual soldier, and there's so much detail in it. It's amazing, really. But so I mean, that's it. And I mean, obviously we've got an idea for the next album, which is going to be moving forward from this one as well.
That's the way you guys are rolling, fast.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to take a little bit of time off now as well. I'm hoping I'm not going to get the sort of like phone call, sort of like saying, "Oh yeah, we're in the studio next week." But, I'm hoping we can leave it. I'm hoping we can leave it till maybe 2019 before we record something.
No.
Just be nice to concentrate on doing shows this year. So,
right. Well, I was going to ask you that too. Once this album is released, do you got a lot of things lined up for this year?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we had quite a few shows. I mean, obviously, if you go on the Facebook page, I mean, all the shows are on there anyway, on the events or the. But recently, now the album is gearing up for release with the booking side of it's becoming quite busy. But I mean, as always, as we've always said anyway, because obviously we've all got jobs, we've got families, so that takes up a lot of time that we don't really want to sort of like I've got this. I really don't want to be out on tour for 6-8 weeks away, sort of like. So what we tend to do is, I mean, we'll try and do. I mean, we're not going to concentrate so much this year on festivals, but we try and get away for long weekends, that kind of thing. So just basically fly in and do 3 or 4 shows, and then come back out. Really, you know what I mean. So it's just a stage really where we are in our in our life really. I mean, it's the thought of being out. I mean, I know nowadays you could say, well, 6 to 8 weeks, you've got Skype, you've got, mobile phones, you can be in contact with people, you've got that visual connection, with Skype, that kind of thing if you want. But it's just a case of, I don't really want to be away for, all that time really. So that's what we do. I mean, but at the moment we've got quite a lot on and quite a lot of offers. So, we just take everything as it comes really.
And now, Andy, what would you say the mindset of the band is now compared to when you first started this band up?
I don't know really. I suppose in a way we've still got the same mindset. We just sort of like do what we want really. We don't really. I mean, we're in that position where we don't really have to do, we can do stuff that we want. We don't have to sort of like, we haven't got a record label saying, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. If there's something we don't want to do, we just sort of like say to them, not going to do it. You know what I mean? So that's good in a way because we can sort of like pick and choose what we want to do. I mean, I'd say we're probably more professional about things now, but I mean, we've always had that sort of, because in a way there's people in the band, that have been in bands for about 30 years, you learn the hard way, don't you? When we started, you have to learn the hard way, you get ripped off, you get, people do stuff, and looking back on it, you learn from it, don't you? So, I mean, that's really, but really all we try and do is just go out, have a bit of fun, and just do what we're good at, really. We try to do different things. We, try to do new things, but, we know, in a way, we know our limits as well, so, but really, I mean, we just doing exactly what we were doing. Well, that sounds, 2 years ago, because you think about it, that's it, really, haven't we? We've only been going for 2 years.
Right.
But we managed to cram a few things into it, really. So, but, so we just keep going, keep doing what we do best, and you do it our way, as was it Frank Sinatra said? I don't know. Yeah, but that's it. I mean, we're at that point. We're at that point in our life where, we do what we want to do now, really. Sort of like, and sort of like that's quite a nice thing to be able to do, because I mean, especially in the UK as well, you get a lot of bands have to actually pay to play, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you know, but you know, I mean, we're lucky enough to, you know, just be in that position now where we can do what we want to do, and, you know, make the music that we want to make, and that's a good place, really. But really, I mean, I'd say, like I said a minute ago, we're probably more professional about it. You know, we want to put on a better show. We want to get, you know, better live. So that's probably the main thing. You know, sort of like we try and be a bit more professional about things.
Well, there you guys have it. Memoriam will be releasing their brand new album March 23rd off Nuclear Blast Records called The Silent Vigil. And Andy, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us today. And all the best to you and the band and the new album out there.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I hope everybody likes it. I mean, all good for the next year. Like I say, we've got another year. You know, you're going to have to put up with us for at least another year. Apologies, obviously, you know, but to many people. But you know, you can't have everything in your life, can you? Thanks a lot anyway. Yeah.